Hello world, it's time for This Week on Twitter. This week on the Twitterverse, Google bought Fitbit for $2.1 billion. I'm not surprised that Fitbit finally got bought out. I mean, Apple Watch has been crushing Fitbit. What I thought was interesting, the headline that Google and all the little tech heads kept plopping up everywhere on Twitter was this, and I'm going to read this direct quote. Fitbit health and wellness data will not be used for Google ads. I'm sorry. Have you ever started a conversation with someone and they're like, oh, by the way, I'm never going to lie to you. By the way, I'm never going to steal from you. By the way, I'm never going to cheat on you. Anytime someone says something a little outrageous, randomly, without prompting in a conversation, I immediately assume that that's what they're going to do. Instead of just focusing on the fact that Google is making this huge purchase and just being like, yeah, pay attention to this. I like how they made the purchase and they were like, we're not going to use the data. All right, sure, Google, sure. This week also on the Twitterverse, a family inadvertently created a pipe bomb at their gender reveal and killed a 56-year-old woman. I get it. Your little pumpkin is on its way and you want to show off to the whole entire world that it's coming. I have made a list of things that you don't need. To announce the birth of a child, you do not need a bomb. Fire, a bomb. Explosives, fire. Did I mention a bomb? I feel really bad. Could you imagine showing up to the funeral and it's like, how did Jan die? And Jan died from a gender reveal bomb. I would not want to go out like that. I'm a thug. I'm a real G. If I'm going to die, it better be dying with something like super dope. Part of me feels bad. I don't want to make light of someone dying. It's just insanity to me that someone inadvertently created a pipe bomb and didn't realize that they were creating a pipe bomb. That's just, I do not understand. Let's just say, hey, a baby's coming. What happened to being excited about 10 fingers and toes? Remember that? Is baby healthy? Let's nip this gender reveal thing in the bud. I don't like it. And if we're going to do it, let's do it safely. This week on the Twitterverse, okay boomer was a phrase that was talked about by the New York Times and NBC News, and they were reporting the origin of the phrase. I find it interesting that the New York Times and NBC News were talking about the phrase okay boomer, which is, the younger generation making fun of boomers, but not really talking about the reason why the boomers are being made fun of. I have a list. Little things like the cost of university tuition, inequality, climate change, the small things. I find it fascinating that the focus is the boomer generation's under attack by the younger generations with this phrase, okay, boomer. And it's like, because we want to talk about the things that are affecting us and will permanently affect us for the rest of our life. Also, this week on Twitter, the I'm Not Surprised award is brought to you by the letter K. K for Keystone Pipeline. The Keystone Pipeline leaked 1.4 million liters. The reason why this tweet gets the I'm Not Surprised award is because our native brothers and sisters warned us if we built this pipeline, it would eventually spill and it would affect the food and water, their whole way of life. And they were attacked, they were abused, and guess what? Several years later, the Keystone pipeline has a leak. And what's really fascinating is it's barely on Twitter. I almost missed it. It's almost like someone doesn't want us to talk about the fact that our Native brothers and sisters were right again. America will never be great until we start treating our Native siblings correctly. This week on Twitter, Senator Richard Burr thinks that student athletes need to have their future scholarships treated as taxable income, which is really fascinating that that's Senator Burr's response, considering the NCAA just announced that students can be compensated for their names and images and likeness. And here's the thing, the NCAA making that recent announcement, this past due. Student athletes, they don't make a couple $100,000 for their school. They don't make millions for their school. They are a billions dollars industry. They make billions for their schools. Their head coaches make millions. I'm sure someone up there makes billions. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. So the fact that Senator Burr's response was, we gotta tax those students. Can they collect a check first? They haven't even collected checks first, and we're already dropping legislation to get that money. That tells me that it was never about protecting students. It was never about making sure that if I throwing a basketball or catching a football and making billions of dollars for the school, that I would see some of that. And before I can even get a check, you're already making sure taxes are happening. Your priorities are wrong, sir. I'm calling you out. Your priorities are wrong, and you should be ashamed of yourself. You really should. This week on Twitter, we lost not one, but two grandpas. We lost Grandpa Kitchen, also known as, his name is Narayan Reddy, also known as Grandpa Kitchen, who was known for feeding the orphans. He had a little YouTube where he made food in bulk for orphans, and it's really sad that he passed. We also lost, I'm under the weather. We also lost John Witherspoon, also AKA Pops. You know him from Boondocks. We lost him this week too. So we just Twitter. We lost two grandpas. So I'm sending virtual hugs. It was a rough week. This week on Twitter, the Prince memoir revealed that the King of Petty hated Ed Sheeran and Katy Perry. I mean, it's Prince. He plays all the instruments, and he can sing, and he can dress. I stan a petty king. This man is dead in his grave, still talking that shit. I love it. I think it's fabulous. So actually, you know what? I wanted to end on a happy note. So that's it for this week on Twitter. Now for a word of encouragement. I want you guys to start keeping a daily journal of your goals. How do you know where you're going to get to if you don't write it down? You need a map, and only you can write it. May love and shalom follow you. I'll see you on Twitter.